All right, good evening, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay? For those of you that weren't able to sign in, we did have a couple sign-in sheets on that back counter. If you wouldn't mind just making sure that you sign in before you leave tonight, just so we have a good representation of who is here this evening for our public information meeting. Wendy is going to pick out some more of those PowerPoint presentation printouts, so if anyone did not get one, when she comes back in the room, just raise your hand. She'll make sure you have a copy. A couple of house cleaning items. We have obviously emergency exits on both sides of the back hall or back wall here. Obviously emergency exits out the vestibule. Restrooms are just out the vestibule and to your left. And then also, just so you're aware, we are recording tonight's meeting, both audio and video, and we'll be posting the video transcription of tonight's meeting on our Facebook page, our website, and our YouTube channel. So we will have this available for public consumption as well after the meeting in case someone was not able to attend. In addition to that, the PowerPoint presentation that we'll be going through this evening has a variety of links built into the PowerPoint. We will provide a PDF copy of that for download from our website, of which all those links will be hyperlinked, and you'll be able to click through them and use the sources and reference points that we'll be identifying this evening as part of our presentation. So real quickly, just to give you an agenda of what our goal here this evening is. Obviously, we're going to open the meeting, do some brief introductions. We'll provide just a brief community profile from a standpoint of equalized value, assessed values, tax rates, and then also talk about debt capacities and debt loads that the four primary communities that we're going to be talking about tonight have. Then we're going to talk about real-life examples of what those tax impacts are going to be if properties are annexed into the village of Hortonville from either the village or town of Greenville, town of Ellington, or town of Hortonia. We'll also identify the area for potential annexation, where this proposed annexation may occur based on information we receive from the village of Hortonville. And then we'll also talk about the annexation law and process. So we'll be talking a little bit about statutes and what the law states as it relates to annexation. Hopefully we'll have some time, obviously, at the end of this evening to provide any opportunity for questions or clarifications. And again, hopefully we'll be able to do that this evening as well, and then we'll be free to go. Real quickly, just some quick introductions. For the town of Greenville, our town board consists of a 5-member body. Jack Anderson is our town chairperson. Our 4 supervisors are Dean Culbertson, Andy Peters, Mark Strobel, and Mike Woods. We have 3 appointed staff, statutorily appointed staff. My name is Joel Gregozeski. I serve as the town administrator for the town of Greenville. Lisa Beyer is our appointed town treasurer, and Wendy Helgeson is our appointed town clerk. Beyond that, we are a full-service community. We have roughly 12,000 residents living in the town of Greenville. We provide a variety of any direct level services that any community our size provides. So we have members of our department management team that help guide those services and service functions for the town. Brian Rickert is our Public Works Director. Michael Brown is our Community and Economic Development Director. Chief Skip Lambie is our Fire and Rescue Chief. And Tony Nowak is our Park and Rec and Forestry Director. Community profiles are broken down based on what is considered total equalized value. So that's all the value of all the improvements in land within the jurisdiction of either the township or the village. Obviously, the town of Greenville is one of the larger of the communities identified on this table. We are a true township by form, 6 miles by 6 miles, 36 square miles. We have a substantial industrial park, obviously the largest resident population in the 4 communities identified. So because of that, we have a higher level of equalized value, roughly $1.3 billion. Our total assessed value is the value that our assessors have assigned to that real and improved property in the town of Greenville. That total assessed value is used to determine what that mill rate is going to be based on the total amount of tax levy that is generated for that municipality. The town of Ellington is the next highest with $252 million in total equalized value. The village of Hortonville is $191 million, and the town of Hortonia at just under $120 million. Again, the sources of this data are made available on the slides. You can type in the hyperlink, or if you download the PDF on our website, you'll be able to click through those, and it'll bring you exactly to the reports that this information is found. The equalized value and the total assessed value is the information that we as municipalities report to the state each year as required under statute. On the far right side is the 2017 combined net mill rates. For most of you, you may have paid at least your first installment of taxes for this year. Many of you probably paid your full installment, and that installment was based on that 2017 mill rate. The combined mill rates for these communities combine taxes from the multiple taxing jurisdictions within your residence or land ownership area. So for example, your local taxes for your town or village, your school district taxes, your vocational or tech school taxes, if there were state taxes, any specialized districts like a sanitary district or a lake district, all those combine into that general mill rate. You can see the mill rates here. They're a long figure. Obviously, it's by the mills. When you combine that to create the tax rate and round, you get to your tax rate, which is generally the form used to determine how much you pay in taxes each year. So for the town of Greenville, residents pay a combined tax rate of $17.49. The town of Ellington at $15.18. The village of Hortonville at $22.74. And the town of Hortonia at $16.69. What's interesting about this, with the exception of the Black Otter Lake District, all of these jurisdictions all pay taxes to the same other taxing jurisdictions like the county, the school district, the vocational college, and the state. So the only real difference between these tax rates is the local jurisdiction, so the town or village. And that's what's creating that discrepancy. So looking at debt from a community profile perspective, this is information provided to us by the Wisconsin Department of Revenue, so it may be a little bit outdated. It's from 2016. The 2017 numbers have not been posted yet on their website, but this gives you an idea of what the full value was, the full equalized value in those jurisdictions in 2016. Obviously, they're a little bit less than what they were in 2017. The second column identifies what the actual current outstanding debt is for that jurisdiction as reported by the Department of Revenue. The town of Greenville had just under $3 million in debt. Town of Ellington had about $300,000. The village of Hortonville's combined debt was just under $6.3 million, and Hortonia did not have any outstanding debt at that time. Each community in the state of Wisconsin is required to maintain a debt to equalized value ratio, and that margin is basically a percentage of that equalized value. So each community, based on that ratio, is given what their debt capacity is based on that full value. That debt capacity is based, again, on that equalized value. So the more equalized value you have, the higher the debt capacity is for your community. And for the town of Greenville, we're looking at about $60 million in total debt capacity. Our margin is 57, basically subtracting the 2.9. So we have we've reached about 5% as a community of our debt capacity. So we have 95% availability of our debt capacity. The town of Ellington has a little bit of debt, but much smaller scale, but they have a much smaller scale of equalized value, and so they're at about 97% available. So they've used about 3% of their debt capacity. The village of Hortonville, much larger debt in comparison to their equalized value. They only have 31% available debt capacity to their equalized value. Okay, so that means they've used up 70% of their debt capacity. Town of Hortonia, no debt, so they have 100% capacity. And they could borrow right now, based on 2016 figures, about $5.8 million. Okay, so how does that break down in a real world example? Here's a property in the town of Greenville. It's N1640 Medina Drive. The assessed value of this property is $150,900. In 2017, they got a tax bill and it was told that they had to pay $2,481.09. How that broke down on their tax bill showed that they paid the town of Greenville $384.43 for taxes. In addition to those taxes, if you look at your tax bill, you see on the far right side a variety of different charges. Those are special charges. They're not taxes. They're charges for service, such as garbage, stormwater, some other key functions. In the town of Greenville, our residents pay $106 for garbage and recycling collection. In addition to that, we have a $75 stormwater fee. That pays for our stormwater utility. So instead of seeing that on a utility bill, you see it annually on your tax bill. Some communities put it on their water bill. For the school district of Hortonville, that person paid $1,190.29. The tech school, $190. The county, $873. There's no other taxing jurisdictions where this home sits, so $0. They received some tax credits, and that gave us our balance of $2,481. If you were to go into Ellington, this is a property in the area of question. This is right off of State Highway 15. There's a home, and it appears to be a small business that operates or had operated out of that area. So N2573 State Road 15. This property is valued slightly higher than that Greenville example. In this particular situation, they paid $2,506.14 in taxes. Again, looking at what they pay the town, they only paid the town $315.47. They have a garbage collection fee of $140, so slightly higher than ours. And they have POUTS, which is basically the private on-site wastewater treatment system. They have to pay an annual fee for inspections to that because they are not provided by public sewer service. Okay, so $13 a year to have that inspected. School district, Hortonville School District, slightly higher assessed value, so they pay slightly more in taxes to the school district. Vocational, county, those are all the same as the Greenville example, and there's no other taxing jurisdiction there as well. And credits are the same based on our area. We get into the Hortonville example. Here's a property that is located at 823 Walnut Street. The assessed value is $157,300, so it's pretty close. It's in between the two examples between Greenville and Ellington. This property here paid taxes in 2017 at a value of $3,603. If you notice, the village taxes are $1,450.55. They have other charges too. $120 for garbage collection. Excuse me. $23 for other charges. I'm not sure exactly what other charges are. Maybe a Hortonville official can describe that. Recycling. So they split the recycling and garbage collection. You have to pay for both. So it's about $178, $180 for garbage collection. So this might be a one-time fee, but obviously you have Gold Cross charges there as well. School district, obviously, again, same school district. Hortonville School District. Vocationals, Fox Valley Tech, same vocational school county. So what's the difference between this property and this one? The difference is the municipal tax, the local tax. The town tax rate versus the village tax rate is much different. So this property, if it were to annex into the village of Hortonville, it's going to pay substantially higher taxes, about $1,000 more per year based on its assessed value. So our point, annexation equals higher taxes. It's a true fact, right? The tax rate is much higher in Hortonville than it is in Ellington, than it is in Greenville, than it is in Hortonia. Annexing into there is going to result in higher taxes for you as a landowner. Okay, another conversation that's come up is municipal water. We have a water district, our Greenville Sanitary District 1, that serves the vast majority of the urbanized area in the town of Greenville. The village of Hortonville has their own utility. It's a village-owned utility, and they service their community. The sanitary district in Greenville serves about 8,000 customers. We have a monthly fire protection charge just like Hortonville does. Ours is $9.46. Hortonville's is slightly higher at $12.87. If you were going to take the water rate and multiply that by the 4,000 gallons typically used in a residential home over the course of that month, we're looking at a dollar value of $23.65. In Hortonville, that cost would be $39.02. So you're looking at, over the course of the year, on the average home, for that value at roughly about $184, $185. Now again, this information is sourced directly from the Public Service Commission. This is data and information that the municipalities, the utilities, supply to the Public Service Commission as part of their annual report. This is not made up information, this is facts. So, annexation equals higher costs for utilities. All right, this is the area that's being potentially petitioned for annexation. This is the result of some interest from private development in this general area. The town of Greenville earlier this year received a preliminary site plan, a conceptual site plan for a Ford dealership to be located at the near intersection of the existing County Highway JJ and Greenville Drive or State Highway 15. Obviously it's labeled here, it would be in this kidney-shaped parcel. There are other investment partnerships in this general area, recognizing that when the bypass goes through, this is going to be an ideal location for additional commercial development. There's higher volumes of traffic, there's high visibility. It is an ideal location for investment and development. We recognize that. The Town of Greenville Town Board and Planning Commission met shortly after that conceptual review and began a planning process to determine the value of that area as well as the entire State Highway 15 corridor. Part of that conversation led us to understand two things. One, we would need to begin the process of planning to extend utilities to that area in order to serve those customers. And two, we are about to embark on the process of updating our comprehensive plan. And so because of that, it would be imperative for us to begin to look more closely at that corridor because there is interest in investment in development for that area. For unknown reasons to the town of Greenville, the individual developer from the Ford dealership approached the village of Hortonville, I presume to seek access to public utilities like water and sewer. And so that conversation basically stirred the interest about petitioning for annexation. The village of Hortonville provided this map online this week via their Facebook page. They may have provided it in other public venues, but this is information that was provided to us via Facebook. One of the items that was also provided was an analysis. There was a feasibility study that was completed by the village of Hortonville to see what it would cost to extend water and sewer services to that area. McMahon, as a consulting engineer, produced an estimate of probable cost. That table 1 here, was shown in that report. And what we're looking at roughly is $633,205. There was no indication about how that was going to be paid for, other than a statement that they're looking at possibly providing grants, extending tax incremental finance districts to fund it through TID financing, or some type of development agreements or developer costs. This was also provided in that report. It shows kind of the direction of where that water and sewer is going to go. I believe the water terminates here, so they would start their connection here, move it up the hill, and then provide water and sewer down State Highway 15. According to their posts on Facebook, none of these property owners would be required to connect unless they desired that connection. Nowhere in that Facebook post did they indicate what the cost would be and who's going to pay for that $633,000 cost. So typically when municipalities extend water and sewer service, they either have some type of financing package or it's coupled with some type of an assessment process, but somebody's got to pay for that extension of utilities. And we don't know for sure, and maybe Hortonville can answer this question, but one way to do that is run assessments down the line of the road. And those assessments are based on the cost per foot of frontage that property is going to benefit from that improvement. In this particular case, using the data from that table, we have determined that there is about 3,750 lineal feet of project area. We know the probable costs are $633,000. That gives us a lineal lineal foot cost of about $168. Now, if we use that example that we showed earlier in the slide, that property owner has roughly 355 lineal feet of frontage on State Highway 15. If they were assessed that full cost, again, we don't know, they would have an assessment of roughly $60,000 to have water and sewer run in front of their home. Again, that's worst case scenario. The village is going to assess everyone for those costs at one point or the other. Maybe not now. A lot of times municipalities do that as well. They will defer the cost of that assessment until the time of development or connection. So if you're a property owner along that State Highway 15, my advice to you is make sure that whatever decision you make is based on some type of written form or document that tells you how those assessments, if there are going to be any, and how they're going to be paid. Because you do not want to be walking down a situation where you're going to have a $60,000 assessment for a water and sewer connection that provides little benefit. Okay, types of annexation. Kind of walking through the different types. There's a few types that the statutes provide. There's basically two types of direct annexation, one by unanimous approval and one by 1/2 approval. Then there are two types of annexations by referendum. And then there are two other types that don't necessarily pertain to this particular case or scenario. It's where you have these town islands and you're annexing them in, or you have territory that's owned by the city or village. Okay, the first one is the one that's the most common. 90% of annexations throughout the state of Wisconsin occur this way. And that's where the owner of the property is seeking to be annexed into the incorporated community. All right, so that's where a landowner immediately adjacent to, let's say, the village of Hortonville has contiguous borders. They want to annex directly right in. It's just their property, no one else's, and that's it. In that particular case, it's a very easy situation. There's not much the townships, unincorporated communities can do. It's, again, initiated by the property owner. They just must be contiguous to the incorporated community. They sign a petition to be incorporated into the village or city. In our case, we're a county with over 50,000 population, so the DOA reviews those petitions to make sure they meet the statutory requirements. There are no noticing requirements. It just happens, okay? There are other things that are tied into that. There are tax repayments and things like that to the unincorporated communities, but there's very little that anyone can do because this is a direct petition by a single landowner. The other option is the 1/2 annexation. So it's direct annexation by 1/2 approval. This is the least common method of annexation. This happens to be the method that is being sought after in this particular case, to our knowledge. About 10% of annexations happen this way. And again, it's initiated by a property owner. So that's what we have in this particular case. There's a property owner, All World Ford, that's seeking annexation. The property or properties must be contiguous to the annexing municipality. So that's why you see that blue strip running right through the town of Ellington to get to Greenville. The petition must be signed by at least 1/2 of the owners of the property being annexed, and we'll get to a latter part of that statute. Again, DOA has to review it because we're in Outagamie County with a population greater than 50,000, and there has to be a notice that is published about the annexation. This is where you come in as landowners and how you can decide whether or not you want to be annexed into the village of Hortonville. So the petition for annexation must be signed by at least 1/2 the owners of the property being annexed. A number of qualified electors, those are voters, residing in the territory subject to the proposed annexation equal to at least the majority of votes cast for governor in the territory of the last gubernatorial election. So to our records, that's about 7 total voters. So 4 would have to vote in favor of this annexation petition. 4 voters. And so the 4 voters are going to really help decide whether or not this happens. And the owners of 1/2 of the land in the area within the territory. So you take the total land area of the land that's being annexed into it, and if 1/2 of the land in that area petition to annex, then that's the requirement met. Or the owners of 1/2 the real property and assessed value within the territory. So then they also look at, and this statement here is an either or. So either area or assessed value. If there are no electors, and in this case there are, but if there were no electors, then it's based on just the land or the assessed value. So people in this situation, the electors, the residents that live there, you have a choice. Okay, there's another option, annexation by referendum. This is owner initiated. So the owners of the property that's proposed for annexation petition for a referendum. The village in this case would have to approve that petition and allow the referendum to take place. Again, the properties have to be contiguous. The petition for the referendum must be signed by at least 1/2 of the owners of the property being annexed. Again, 50,000 requirement because of the county. Class 1 notice must be held. And then we must meet the requirements of statutes as it relates to a referendum. The other option would be an annexation by referendum initiated by the municipality. So that's where the city or village would come to you and say, we want to annex this property in. We're willing to hold a referendum. We're going to publish a notice to have that referendum, and we're going to have you vote, and the landowners within that area are going to be able to vote and determine whether or not that referendum succeeds. Okay, the other option is municipal property. You'll see this from time to time where a village or city will buy out property in a township, and then they'll go and annex the property into the municipality. Again, that property has to be contiguous, or at least near, but not necessarily contiguous to the municipality. You might have situations where a city or village might buy area to locate a well or a tower or something like that. And so they may annex property outside of that contiguous area in order to site that public infrastructure. Okay. I am doing perfect on time. I figured 30 minutes. That kind of walks you through the information we wanted to present to you tonight. We wanted to make sure that landowners in this area understand that they have a choice. If a petition for annexation is circulated, you all have an opportunity to sign that petition to determine whether or not you're going to annex into the village of Hortonville. Okay? The electors are probably the ones that are the most important because you determine whether or not that's going to go in. If they do not have at least 4 electors, then that petition will likely fail. Okay? I also encourage you to make sure that you reach out, any landowners in Ellington. Reach out to the village of Hortonville. Get a better understanding of their assessment policy, or how they're going to fund that utility infrastructure and what that means to you. Okay? I don't know that it has been clearly established yet. And if it does get established, I would recommend that you get something in writing. I would get some type of an agreement, something that is binding that will hold their officials accountable for the decisions that will be made later on as this progresses. Okay? With that, I will stop there and answer any questions or give any clarification at this point. Dave.
Joel, thank you for your presentation. A lot of the things, whether Greenville, because this apparently Greenville was involved with the all-world discussion apparently regarding water and sewer utilities. But Greenville, if Greenville had to come in, Greenville would have to spend a lot of money, probably more than Hortonville. So if someone wants to be annexed, now there might be people who don't want to be annexed, and I do because I own commercial property. So what am I going to do with it? I continue to rent it out. I could, but I
Sure. We have not formally looked at that. As indicated in some correspondence that the village had put out, that we've done this feasibility study and have determined that the costs are too high. That's just simply not true. Essentially what we did is we as a unincorporated community, we must reach out to the East Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission to determine what the process or how we can seek approval to extend our sewer service area. The letter that was published and provided to the village of Hortonville was just that. It was an opinion piece saying if All World Ford is the only development to occur in this area, the probability of extending 2.5 miles of utilities to that area just doesn't seem financially feasible. That doesn't take into any consideration of other potential developments along the entire 15 corridor. We have other businesses that are currently seeking utility extension. Reister and Schnell, some of the churches in the area. They want the utilities to be extended. If we can put together a solid plan and present that to East Central, it is certainly possible that the sewer service area could be amended. So the possibility and the potential is there. There was not an outright denial. There was not a formal application submitted. It was an opinion of staff, and that's all. So I would say that, yes, it's possible. Could I give you a definitive cost of what that is going to be? No, because we haven't gotten to that point of doing a formal study. Any other questions?
I have one for clarification, and I think you go back to your slides. There was a table that was presented on the potential cost of for Village of Hortonville to extend. There was a note at the bottom of that. Just want to make sure that there's clarification.
This one?
So the note at the bottom, and those in the back probably can't see it unless they're looking at the paper. It says water and sanitary sewer bills, booster pump station on private property is not included in this cost. So that means if a property owner wants to hook up to this, they have additional costs above and beyond what you showed as the potential assessed value?
I'm not exactly certain. What I would say that based on our analysis by our staff looking at this, they're going to have some pressure issues going up the hill for water, and so a booster station would be required. At some point, they would have to locate that booster station in order to service the high end of that area.
Is there additional cost that's not in that table that a property owner would have to pay to get hooked up to this?
I can't answer that for the village of Hortonville, but based on that note, in my opinion, I would say there's additional costs not included in this table.
So if they're required immediately or sometime in the future, pending the whatever agreement, they could have additional costs as a property owner.
Correct. Dean. Okay, so the comment was Dean Culbertson had contacted our water and sewer superintendent, indicated that if a booster station is needed in order to serve the uphill clients, that booster station was going to be, what did you say, Dean? Okay. 200 to 300,000. Diane?
I'm curious, you clearly are looking at to, and just for clarification, for transparency, I'm with the Village of Hortonville. You mentioned the extension out to the east, to the west from the east, 2.5 miles. You mentioned that you don't have any costs or anything like that, but you're looking at that and you're looking at incorporation. I question if you're looking at annexation since you're telling Ellington what the water cost would be from Greenville. But anyhow, I'm just curious in that you're taking staff time and effort into figuring out the cost of running it from Ellington, or excuse me, Hortonville, but you don't have any cost estimate of what your project would be?
We're obviously, clearly, this is an issue that has come up. It's a relatively recent issue for us. We have not had any direct conversation with development in the area short of that conceptual site plan. That developer has since obviously gone and spoken with the village of Hortonville. So we are certainly working towards a few options and ideas that would help preserve and protect the integrity of the town's borders. And to answer your question about Ellington, I think it's important for Ellington residents to know, just primarily because we currently serve Ellington residents with our water in certain locations.
So the
So if I'm understanding your point, so the question is, does the town of Greenville have any hard costs, probable costs to extend water and sewer to that area? And the answer is no. We have not done a formal feasibility study as Hortonville has alleged the town has done. Excuse me. All right, let's, okay. Okay, yep. Okay, Diane, this is our meeting. You're more than welcome to conduct your own public meeting. Just a moment, please. You're more than welcome to conduct your own public meeting. Excuse me, Al. Excuse me. Okay, okay. So let me make this clear again, just for the record. So we have not done an official feasibility study. We have not created a table of probable cost as Hortonville has done. We have not done that, okay? Doesn't mean that we aren't working towards that, but we don't have hard numbers to present to you tonight, okay? Our point is that Hortonville is obviously desiring to do this. There's a desire to extend those utilities to this site. Those utilities are going to extend past residents in the town of Ellington. Some of those residents have come to me and have addressed their concerns with us about the extension of those utilities, okay? They're concerned about the costs, what the impacts are going to be. Some residents are concerned about being forced to hook up when they don't want to hook up. Maybe they just made improvements to their on-site septic systems or their mounds, holding tanks, or they've made improvements to their well. They haven't had that need, okay? That's the point of this, that this is the information that may not be presented to you as an Ellington resident from the village of Hortonville. And our intent was to make sure that everybody that is being potentially impacted by the annexation has information from both sides. That's our point. Al.
I'm confused because you say you're giving information for both sides, but yet all you're giving is the Hortonville numbers. You have no numbers for Greenville, and to my knowledge, those numbers, when they come out, are going to make your rates higher than what you're presenting, because somebody's going to have to pay for it.
Okay.
So there's my confusion. Why are we having this meeting when you have no numbers for your own? I mean, it looks like you're trying to put a fear tactic on the people in the annexation area rather than putting out the facts from Greenville's side of it.
We understand that. Number one, we wouldn't extend utilities to the town of Ellington unless they ask for those utilities to be extended. We wouldn't force it, okay? So at no point would the town of Greenville extend utilities beyond that area. Number one, we can't. Number two, we'd only do it when we're asked, in which we've done before for other areas in Ellington. So it's not a question of what that is. The affairs of the town of Greenville are only of the concern for the residents in Greenville, okay? Not for Hortonville, not for Ellington. The point that we're making is that Ellington residents may not be given all the information that Hortonville will present to them that is true and factual, okay? Number two, the All World Ford site and the Wolf River Partners site would not be able to annex into the village of Hortonville without the annexation of properties in Ellington. Okay, so I think it's fair, right, and just that the residents in Ellington, because they're being used as pawns, are made aware of all the impacts that could result of this annexation. Hold on, I had a question from a lady in the back. Greenville wouldn't do that. Greenville wouldn't do it. We wouldn't extend utilities past your house. My point is the.
She's saying a house similar
Yeah.
in the Greenville area.
Okay. Yeah. Well, let me ask you this, ma'am. Do you live south of this line or north of this line? Okay. We would only extend water to our town borders. So it doesn't matter. That's an irrelevant point.
Look in the other direction.
No, I don't think it does. So. It's not an issue for annexation, though. That's the point. Right. The point is it doesn't impact any of these residents in Ellington. Al, excuse me. Al, you represent Hortonville, correct?
That's correct. I am.
Do you represent Greenville?
I am not
Right.
afraid to say I am village president.
Al,
We had 2 of your representatives come to our meeting the other night and misrepresented themselves. I will not do that. I
Okay.
am village president, and you're not answering her question because she is saying on Greenville's 2.5 miles that you're talking about extending. In that area, if you own the same amount of property as Mr. Parker does, would they be assessed approximately the same amount? In your area,
I can't answer that question, Al, because I don't have the costs, I don't have the financing, just like the village of Hortonville hasn't clearly identified the cost. But let me make a point here. You represent Hortonville. Our town board represents Greenville. The town board in Greenville makes the decisions for actions in Greenville. My point is, you do not represent Ellington. Okay? No, I don't. But the impacts to Ellington have an impact here to Greenville. Sir.
what is your timeline for providing your one and only developer water and sewer?
We,
What's your timeline for getting that water?
we do not have an official timeline. Again, we haven't done a full feasibility study. Yep. Yep. I'm curious to see how Hortonville will be able to provide water and sewer to them by that time. It may. Obviously, this is an important area, okay? That area, we appreciate the development opportunity that All World Ford is presenting to us, but we also recognize that this area is important. It's an important commercial corridor, okay? It doesn't necessarily have to be All World Ford. Would we like it to be there? Absolutely. Would we love to have the opportunity to have the assessed value? Sure, certainly. Who wouldn't? But 2 points. One, Hortonville would never be able to provide the utilities in that time frame regardless, okay? So it's not really about water and sewer for that development, right? Number 2, other development will occur in that area, and what's important to us is obviously preserving and protecting the boundaries of the town of Greenville. Again, this is our meeting, town of Greenville, that we wanted to make sure that everybody, okay, I appreciate that. And I wanted to make sure that everybody understood what is being planned here. Okay, that's a different discussion for another meeting. Because again, we don't have that information. We don't know if All World Ford is going to develop there at this point. We don't know if that land is going to stay in the town. This information will be posted on our website. Yep. Sure. This meeting was intended to be an invited meeting to the residents that were impacted by the potential annexation. The village of Hortonville obviously took it upon their own premonition to post this information on Facebook. So because of that, we wanted to make sure that any one of our residents were made aware of that as well. Joe.
I'm Joe Schmucker, I'm town chairman of Ellington. After the letter went out and stuff, I had a lot of people call me, they're just concerned about the taxes. They're not concerned about the sewer and water or anything like that, the assessment on that. It's the tax rate that they're concerned about. The other thing is, we got the largest portion to lose. We're losing 50-some acres or 50 acres roughly. And
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I am a property owner in the town of Ellington. I'm right around the strip right next to Don Parker. I did meet with the village of Hortonville, and my taxes are gonna go up $1,700 a year, which I am not on board with. The next question I had was, what is the next step for our property owners that live in that area? Do we have a time when we vote or don't vote, or what do we do to say, we don't want it?
You have to talk to officials from the village of Hortonville. They would be working through the private development to process the petition for annexation. I don't know their timeline. I don't know what their goals are. I'm not sure if they're willing to share that this evening or not.
We're not there yet, because actually, we just got the feasibility study done 4 days ago, and we were, or the 16th, we were not, pursuing it until we knew that it was feasible. We met with some property owners, we met with the town of Ellington, and we met with Greenville early on to say that we were looking at it because we had the request, but we did not want to pursue until we knew it was feasible. So we just got that 4 days ago, or like I said, on the 16th, and frankly, we didn't even barely have time to review it or anything before we were made aware of this tonight. So that's why the village doesn't have everything ready, because we're not that far along in the process yet. We just got the report saying it was feasible. So I don't know yet, but you will certainly be notified. This kind of, having this information go out made us have to be reactionary, proactive, because we, like I said, we just found out on the 16th from the engineer that it was feasible.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
Can I ask if letters were sent out from the town of Ellington and the town of Greenville opposed this possibly happening?
I,
Sorry, I
the,
hear letters being sent
the
out.
town of Greenville sent out notification to a variety of property owners in Ellington, Greenville, and Hortonia. The town of Greenville did. I'm not sure if Ellington sent anything.
When did the town of Greenville's go out?
Would have been late last week.
Well, part of my property's in the town of Greenville and part of my property's in the town of Ellington.
Oh,
I got nothing.
sure. Are you south of here?
I'm,
Are you down here?
I'm the blue line, the very
Okay.
bottom blue line.
Okay. Okay. Well, we made an attempt. Obviously, we mailed it beyond this section or town border line, so I apologize if
The town of Greenville, how come I didn't get a letter?
I can't say. I don't know if the post office delayed it, or, I mean, I can tell you that obviously we mailed it to that general area. I'm not sure why you didn't receive your letter.
That's right. Last Wednesday was the first time we heard about it. We heard rumors, but last Wednesday they approached us.
This is, as Diane had mentioned, it's reactionary, right? So we caught wind that Hortonville is further along in their process about annexation. Obviously, we're trying to preserve the integrity of our town, okay? Again, Hortonville can say that they have our interests in mind, but they don't, okay? So our job is to make sure that we protect our borders and protect the tax base in the town of Greenville and protect the future viability of our community.
When all world board bought that property, did they buy it because they wanted to be annexed into one township or the other? I don't get, who are they that they can flip everything upside down now? They had perfect property in Hortonville, like Murphy Ford, why didn't they do that? Why
Sure.
are they so important?
I can't answer that.
How many acres does Greenville stand to lose on it?
Between Mike Murphy Ford and potentially these two properties owned by Wolf River Partnership, it's roughly about 18 to 19 acres. But we have to also keep in mind that right now, the village of Hortonville does not have contiguous borders to the town of Greenville. The only way they can do that is through Ellington or Hortonia. Once they've made their way in, then again, we're looking out for our best interests, and we hope that our best interests are also Ellington's best interests here. Once they're in, then they can continue to annex and control the development for the 15 corridor. Yes, sir.
Town of Ellington supervisor, I think we're all here, I think that we're on the same page as you are, that we want to protect our borders as well as you do.
I'm curious, Joel, with your, the incorporation that Greenville is working on right now, incorporating the village, where are those estimated boundaries? Is it the entire town, so that you would have a village, and then potentially annexation, ability
we get to a point where the town decides, in order to protect its borders, to incorporate itself, those boundaries haven't been formally determined. Those are determined after we initiate the petition process for that incorporation. So we're not there yet. But if we get to a point where we decide we're going to incorporate and the town is successful in incorporating, it would be our intent during that incorporation process to reach out to our unincorporated neighbors and make sure that there are border agreements established with each of them. We're a 36 square mile community. We don't need more land. We just want to preserve and protect what we have today. We have a very proud heritage in our community. We want to make sure that heritage stays and does not get gobbled up by another municipality.
In the most recent meeting, the board had said to create a map of these areas, so I was just curious if you had something in mind for the incorporation.
We are.
That information was going to be going to the board and starting that petition process for incorporation.
No, essentially what has to happen is there has to be a couple residents that take interest in that. They file a notice of intent to petition the town residents to incorporate. That notice, to my knowledge, has not been formally published yet. If it is published, then obviously they have a timeline to collect signatures. Once those signatures are achieved, then there's a timeline to submit that to the circuit court. Circuit courts would then obviously determine the viability of the incorporation petition, and then that begins the Department of Administration review process, which could take over 18 months.
I realize that. I just saw that on the March 12th meeting minutes. It was directed that staff start drafting that legal description map and petition. So I just figured that must have some intent and idea of where it would be that you would incorporate with the entire boundary.
Sure. That's not necessarily part of this meeting, but we will have a town board meeting coming up on Monday where we'll be talking a little bit more about that. Yes, ma'am.
So I'm all about comparing apples to apples. And I guess when I looked at, like you looked at like the mill rates and the tax rates and that sort of thing. So, and I get that this is a separate meeting for Greenville. But if Greenville were to go through incorporation to become a village, obviously their tax rate, yeah, if we could pull that slide up, their tax rates would significantly go up. No, not that one. It was where.
Well, you have your combined tax rate.
That's where the mill rate went. But I guess what I'm looking at is once you're a village, you're required to have certain services. So as a town, yes, you have cheaper taxes because of the different types of services that aren't required. So just to compare apples to apples, I guess I'll be watching this with the Greenville part side of it, but just to understand your taxes as a Greenville resident would go up significantly if you incorporated.
No, not necessarily. We provide the service levels that are required. There are a few administrative things that would change. So we'd have to have, you have to have a contracted law enforcement presence. So the only thing that would change would be we'd switch from having a fire commission. So it's a de minimis change. Dave, let's talk more about annexation instead of all this other incorporation comments because that's the topic of this meeting.
Yeah, as far as the studies, Greenville's going to be looking at all the numbers, and obviously the neighbors, everyone is considering the impact of property taxes. I would hope that the town, when they look at, that they would also look at property values, that a property that has water and sewer and could be commercial property, that there's a benefit to having that in terms of value. There might be higher taxes in the short run, but in the long run, it's a higher value for those people who may want to have that happen on their end rather than just the property tax. I think that's part of the evaluation that the town needs to do when they look at extending services. What happens to the value of the property affected, not just the taxes?
We agree. Yes, sir.
How does the Highway 15 bypass project play into this? I mean, the state has really no intention of doing that anytime in the next couple of years. Is all this for nothing until the bypass is built?
I think it's dependent on the developer's interest in developing prior to the bypass. I know they're working through some type of contingency plan for access into this property because as the bypass comes in, access onto the existing State Highway 15 will have to be removed, and they would have to get access on what will eventually be the extension of JJ. So they have to work through that with the DOT. Any other questions, clarifications? Yes, sir. I do not have that list here this evening, but would be accessible through the Wisconsin voter registration system. Yes, sir. Obviously, there are a variety of legal strategies that the town of Greenville will use, but we certainly understand that case law as well. There's other case law that we feel might pertain to this, and we would certainly challenge those. Okay, any other questions at all? Otherwise, I will take this time to thank you for coming out. Hopefully, we provided some information for you to at least think about. Again, this meeting we will be publishing on our website likely sometime tomorrow, along with a PDF copy of the PowerPoint presentation. Again, if you don't trust that these are facts, the links are all in there. You can click right through the links, read it yourself, make your own decision. Don't allow one entity to influence you more than the other. We just wanted to make sure that you heard our case and our side of the story. So thank you very much again. Have a good evening.